All right, making autoscaling with Amazon Web Services. The last thing we did in the video, part one, we create the instance, right, that we are going to use. But we actually have to create an AMI, which is an image of the instance, because we want to create an AMI web server with Apache Hadoop to launch multiple instances, and all of those instances have to have the Apache Hadoop. All right, so that's the reason we have to create an image. So let's create the image of this instance. I already did it, but just to explain you just go to the instance and make image and create an image. That's all. And then you have to check here in the AMIs if you have the image. And here is the image. A Amazon Machine Interface Web Server. This is the image that we created. So now we are going to continue making autoscaling with AWS. So first we have to launch the configuration. Just put the name and select the AMI, the instance type, the key pair, user data, security group, and the role. So let's do that. So before we do something, we have to eliminate whatever we have here. Terminate. All right, we have to refresh. So let's do the launch configuration. Here we come, and then create a launch configuration. All right, so we can choose from my AMIs. Here's the image that we just created before, you remember. So we select this one and upset. Here we are going to put the name. Okay, launch configuration, web service 1. Just leave it as default. Here it's going to be 8 gigabytes. Okay, and now we are going to select or create the security group. So let's create the security group. Let's put the name and maybe 1. Here we put the description. We are going to read the description. All right, so the port 80 is the port number assigned to commonly used internet communication protocol, the Hyper Transfer Protocol HTTP. To connect through SSH, a user requires the port number 22. So, and a public address of the server. So we need HTTP. The port is 80. Then we need SSH. Good. Very good. Anywhere. Review. Okay. Create the launch. Choose the key that we want. Acknowledge. And create the launch. Successful. Now we create an autoscaling group using the launch configuration. So we did the launch configuration, and now the autoscaling group defines name, launch configuration name, subnet, minimum size, maximum size, and the desired capacity. At the end, we are going to do the load balancer and the health checks. Let's do that. So the name, we can put autoscaling group 1. Here we have to set up the desired capacity, in this case only 1. In what network our autoscaling group will work? In the VPC, which is the virtual private cloud IP address. So in this network, it will handle the autoscaling group. And now this autoscaling group will scale in or scale out instances as it needs, according with the demand. And all these instances will be in a range of IP address from a subnet. So we have to configure this and this subnet. Let's do that. After we roll the name and the desired and then the desired capacity, we are going to set up the network. So this is the network for the VPC. Just leave it as default. And the subnet, we will add 2 subnets. Very good. Now let's configure the policies now. So here the CloudWatch register the demand of the instances, and when there is a high demand of CPU and memory, there are scale out rules to add more instances, and when there is a low demand, there are rules to scaling the instances. So to remove the instances, that's what we are going to do now. Okay, here we use scaling policies, and we have to use the step. We check here for the name, then we add whenever the average of the CPU utilization is greater than, let's say, 50, right? For at least one consecutive period of 5 minutes, we will have an alarm in order to add one instance in 30 seconds, 300 seconds to warm up after each step. And this is just to increase the size of instances. We will call this scale out. And this one, to decrease the group size, we will call it scale in. We add an alarm whenever the average of the CPU is less or equal than 30%. So we will create an alarm to remove one instance. Very good. All right. So let's do that. Let's configure the notifications. Very good. Let's add a tag. Let's put it 1. Review. Very good. And let's create the auto scaling. Very good. Successful. There is an auto scaling installed. Let's close it, and we will see that instance. All right, this is the auto scaling group number 1. Very good. Excellent. Oh, wait a second. We made a mistake. We forgot to put, we forgot to set up the maximum. Okay, let's edit. And here we can do it also. And desired capacity 1, minimum 1, maximum 4. Okay, very good. There you go. We have 4 now. Okay. Okay. Very good. Now we are going to see here in the EC2 dashboard instances that the Autoscale group web server I just created, it's running them right now. And to make sure this is working correctly, I'm going to copy the DNS and test it to see if it's running correctly. Very good. It has the Amazon Linux AMI test page because as you remember, we have created an instance, right? And in this instance, we were able to put the Apache here. And now we are going to we were able to create an image, and from that image we can create an image web server with Apache Hadoop to launch multiple instances. In all these instances we will have also Apache Hadoop, and that's why when we test it we see the Apache here. Very good. Let's make a review. So we did the launch configuration, we did the auto scaling group, and we set up the minimum size, the desired capacity, and the maximum capacity. Now we have to do the load balancer and the health checks. for the load balancer. Let's do that. Now let's remember that the load balancer, elastic load balancer, balances evenly the traffic of the mountains of web access requests that must be served. So let's go over here and we see load balancing. Click on load balancers, create a load balancer, in this case the classic load balancer, and we have to add the name here, add the name web server load balancer. Let's keep it this on by default. Now let's remember this is the load balancer and it's going to work on the VPC network. For here there is a port and over here there is a port, and this port has to be configured as HTTP 80 for internet access, right? And let's do that. The load balancer protocol will be HTTP 80 for this port and HTTP and for the instance port. We have the instance port and we have the load balance port. Now assign security groups. Let's check the default VPC security groups. Now we are going to configure the health check. The PIN protocol is HTTP 80 for the PIN port, PIN path, index HTML, the response time, time to wait when receiving a response from health check, 5 seconds. The interval, amount of time between health checks, it can be from 5 seconds to 30 seconds. Let's leave it in half a minute. Unhealthy threshold, number of consecutive health check failures before declaring an instance unhealthy. And the unhealthy threshold, number of consecutive health check before declaring an EC2 instance healthy. Let's put it 5. Okay, now add some instances. So let's make a review. Here we have the load balancer. Let's remember we put a tag web server load balancer 1. Yes, and this load balancer is going to work with the instances created by the Autoscaling group. And these instances we put the name as Autoscale group web server 1. So this is the instances that we are going to choose, and as it is going to scale out, it will be web server 2, web server 3, web server 4, etc. So let's continue to select this is the load balancer configuration. This is the instance. We select this one and we are going to add the tag. Okay, let's put 1. Very good. And review and create. So successfully created the load balancer. Good. So here is the load balancer. So as we can see here we have the instance, yes, but nothing is happening. And why nothing is happening? Because the desired instance is 1. So there's no requirement to increase, because there's no demand of CPU and memory or whatever. There's no demand. So that's why it doesn't scale out the number of instances. It just remains like that. So to see this working and to see this making an auto-scaling, we have to manipulate and we have to basically increase the demand. So in this case, there will be a scale out to add more instances to deal with the high demand. And if the demand goes down, there will be an scaling to decrease the instances. This is what we are going to call stress the servers for the next video. Bye. My name is Alex Tapia. Have a good one.